excluded from Christmas for being a plumber. I cut off my sister's law school money, and now she's begging. Okay, so I've been sitting on this story for a long time, trying to figure out where to even begin describing this disaster. I suppose I should introduce myself first. I'm 34, unmarried, and I own my own plumbing business. Yeah, I know, it's not the most glamorous job, according to certain people, including my family. But to be honest, I make a lot of money, and I actually enjoy what I do. There's something rewarding about fixing problems and helping people, even if it occasionally requires dealing with their, well, literal messes. LOL. Now let's talk about Stacy, my 26-year-old sister. She's currently in law school, and guess what? I've been paying for it. Yeah, you read that right. I've been covering her entire tuition since she started. Her boyfriend, scratch that, her fiancé, is some hotshot doctor at the local hospital. A real piece of work, but we'll get to him later. This whole mess started about a week before Christmas. I get a call from my mom. Now, you have to understand something about my mother. She never calls just to talk or check in. If she's calling, it's because she wants something or because there's a family issue that needs to be solved. Usually, that means money. But this call? It was different. She started off with this weird, hesitant tone, like she was about to tell me that my dog had died. And then she drops a bombshell. I'm not invited to Christmas this year. Just like that. No notice, no discussion, nothing. At first, I thought I misheard her, like maybe she was saying they were changing the date or something. But nope. She went on to say that it might be best if I sit this one out because they wanted to keep things comfortable for everyone. I just sat there thinking, what the actual We've always celebrated Christmas together, even when I was working crazy long hours to get my business off the ground. Sure, my family has always been a little weird about my job. They love the money I make, but God forbid they actually tell people what their son and brother does for a living. So I pressed her on it. What's the real reason? She started hedging and hawing, talking in circles about professional appearances and everyone's comfort. But she refused to give me a straight answer. Wouldn't say why I was being excluded, just that it was for the best. It wasn't until later that day that I found out the real reason, courtesy of my cousin Sarah. She had overheard Stacy talking to our mother earlier that week. Apparently, my lovely sister had informed our parents that having me at Christmas would be awkward because I didn't fit in with her and her boyfriend's professional standing. Let that sink in for a minute. My own sister, the one whose entire law school education I've been paying for, was ashamed to have me at Christmas. And why? Because I'm only a plumber. She was worried about how her fancy doctor fiancé would react to sitting at the same table as someone who works with their hands for a living. The more I thought about it, the more things started clicking into place. Like how Stacy never invited me to any of her law school events, despite the fact that I was the one paying for her to attend. Like how she always changed the subject whenever her friends asked what her brother did for a living. Like how, despite dating this guy for nearly a year, she never once introduced me to him. And do you know what the worst part was? My parents agreed with her. They actually thought it was okay to exclude their own son from Christmas because my employment might make their precious daughter's boyfriend uncomfortable. The same son who has been financially supporting the family since he was 18. The same son who built his own successful business from the ground up. The same son who has been paying for their golden child's law school education without a single complaint. My mother tried to sugarcoat it with phrases like, well, honey, you know how these professional circles are. And the kicker? Maybe next year when you've developed your career more. What the actual does that even mean? I own my own business. I have staff. I make 6 figures doing honest work. But apparently, because I don't wear a suit and tie to work, my career isn't evolved enough for their standards. I spent the rest of the day stewing over that information, feeling a cold, calm kind of anger. Not the loud, yelling kind of pissed off. No, this was worse. This was the sharp, cutting realization that my family, especially my sister, had been using me this entire time while secretly being ashamed of me. That's when I decided enough was enough. If I was too embarrassing to bring to Christmas dinner, then my money would be too embarrassing to spend on law school. I mean, what kind of message would it send to my sister's fancy fiancé if he found out that her prestigious law degree was being paid for by a gas-passing plumber? But hold on. This is only the beginning. The real show started when I decided to take action. And let me tell you, karma is especially when it comes with the accompanying student loan burden. So after learning that I was being barred from celebrating Christmas because my blue-collar profession might insult my sister's boyfriend's delicate sense of possibilities, whatever the hell that means, I entered a strange state of mind. You know that feeling when you're so enraged that you suddenly become weirdly calm? Yeah, that's where I was. I spent the entire night scrolling through old texts and conversations with Stacy, and holy the signs were everywhere. I was just too blind, or maybe too stupid to see them before. Take last spring, for example. Stacy had a big party to celebrate finishing her first year of law school. Now, keep in mind, I was the one who paid for that entire year. But did I get an invite? Nope. When I asked her about it, she lied. Said it was just a small thing with her study group. Later, I found out through Facebook, of all places, that it was actually a huge event at some posh downtown restaurant. Then there was the time she needed a new laptop for school. Now, I know a lot about computers. Hell, even in plumbing, we use tablets and specialized software for scheduling jobs and giving estimates. But instead of asking me to help her pick one out, she just told me to transfer the money to her account. Didn't even pretend to ask for advice. Her excuse? Oh, I'm too busy to go shopping with you. Yeah, sure. Looking back, it's actually kind of funny. In a sad, pathetic way. Whenever she needed money, which by the way was all the damn time, she had zero problem texting her humiliating blue-collar brother. But when it came to acknowledging my existence in her fancy new life, radio. Silence. So I decided to take advantage of one very useful resource. Having a cousin who's still in the family group chat. LOL. Turns out Stacy had been planning my Christmas exclusion for weeks. She told our parents that her boyfriend Craig, yes, his name is Craig, came from a very prestigious family, and she was worried about making a good impression. Apparently, having a plumber for a brother might harm her professional prospects, or some elitist bullshit like that. And the real kicker? My cousin Sarah, bless her messy, drama-loving heart, forwarded me screenshots of the group chat. And let me tell you, when I say my jaw hit the damn floor, Stacy had actually written, and I am quoting this directly, I just don't want Craig to think our family isn't, educated. It could affect how his family sees me, and they have so many connections in the legal world. Educated. I wanted so badly to respond with, oh, you mean the education you're only getting because your uneducated plumber brother pays $43,000 a year for it? But I held back, because at that moment, I realized something. This wasn't just about Christmas. This was about years of my family, especially Stacy, treating me like a filthy little secret. They were happy to accept my dirty plumber money, but God forbid they acknowledge how I earned it. Here's a fascinating truth about plumbing that most people don't know. We actually have to study extensively. Years of apprenticeships, license exams, ongoing education to keep up with new regulations and technology. I probably spent more time studying water systems and construction codes than Stacy did cramming for tort law. But because I work with my hands, they treat me like I'm some idiot who couldn't hack it in the real professional world. The reality? I chose plumbing because I'm damn good at it. I started working as an apprentice right out of high school, learned everything I could, got my licenses, and eventually started my own company. Right now, I have 3 trucks on the road, 2 full-time employees, and more work than I can handle. But to my family, I'm still just the embarrassing brother who fixes toilets. So there I was, stewing over all the times I'd stayed late at work, took on extra jobs, delayed buying things for myself, and even held off on contributing more to my own retirement account, all to fund Stacy's tuition, because family came first. And meanwhile, She was out here, actively hiding my existence from her boyfriend and his family. But here's the real kicker. Craig's family didn't even care. His uncle, a successful contractor, the guy built their family home. Turns out, Stacy was the only one looking down on me because that's how she sees me. And the final gut punch? I found out through Sarah that my parents had removed me from the family group chat weeks ago so they wouldn't have to deal with any awkwardness over Christmas plans. Yeah, they excommunicated me. And there she was, bragging about hosting Craig for Christmas dinner. His family has ties to all the major law firms in the city. This could be my big opportunity to get a summer position through his contacts. And not one person, not my parents, not my other relatives, thought to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't exclude the guy who's literally funding Stacy's future. Nope. They were just thrilled that she was schmoozing her way into a prestigious internship through Craig's family. And that was the moment I knew exactly what I needed to do. If they wanted to pretend they didn't have a plumber in the family, I'd help them make that lie a reality. Starting with Stacy's tuition payments. Now, I didn't want to explode on them. No angry text, no dramatic confrontation, no. I wanted to do this in a way they couldn't twist. Because if there's one thing my family loves, it's making me out to be the bad guy. So, I waited. See, Stacy's next tuition payment was coming up in 2 weeks. And normally, she'd start dropping hints. You know, little things like, ugh, the school's been sending me so many reminder emails about the payment deadline. It's so stressful. But this time, radio silence. She must have assumed the payment would just magically appear like it always did, even after they'd banned me from Christmas. And that's when I logged into her tuition portal, $21,500. $21,500. That's how much I'd been dropping per semester for someone who was actively erasing me from her life. So I made a decision, and let me tell you, karma was about to collect its debt. Then came the flying monkeys. My aunt called, disappointed in my behavior. My uncle texted saying I needed to man up and be the bigger person. Even my cousin Sarah, who was the one that spilled the tea about Stacy's lies, messaged me saying maybe I was taking things too far. But you know what? None of them offered to help pay Stacy's tuition themselves. The best part? Stacy actually went and told Craig what was going on. I guess she thought he'd offer to help with the tuition. Spoiler alert, he didn't. According to Sarah, who's still keeping me updated, Craig got real quiet when Stacy started explaining. He asked things like, why didn't Stacy ever mention she had a brother? And why didn't she introduce them? He couldn't understand why Stacy would keep her brother's existence a secret just because he was a plumber. Turns out, Craig's uncle, the one who built their family home, started as a plumber before becoming a contractor. Craig had actually worked summers with him in high school. So yeah, the whole plumber equals embarrassment thing wasn't sitting well with Craig. When Stacy tried to explain herself, she just dug herself deeper. She started rambling about professional appearances and social circles, and Craig got more and more upset. He couldn't believe she would hide and disrespect her own brother, the one who'd been supporting her education, just for some perceived social status. Craig told her the next day that he needed time to think about their relationship. He said her actions revealed a side of her personality he didn't like. Who knew he had principles? Meanwhile, my parents were blowing up my phone 24/7. Mom alternated between crying and begging, and Dad between cursing and threatening. Stacy kept calling from other numbers after I blocked hers. At that point, I just turned off my phone for a few days. It was all the same, how I was ruining everything by not just shutting up and paying like a good little ATM. But I was done being their ATM. If standing up for myself made me the bad guy in their eyes, then so be it. It was better than being their doormat. A few days later, Craig showed up at Stacy's apartment. She probably thought he was there to make up. But no, he broke up with her. He told her he couldn't be with someone who would treat their own brother that way, especially someone who had supported them so much. He said it made him question her values and who she truly was. Stacy lost it. She contacted me, crying and shouting from yet another new number. At this point, she had more burner phones than a drug dealer. She said I'd wrecked everything. That Craig broke up with her because of me. That her life was falling apart and it was all my fault. I laughed and replied, "No, sis. Craig ended his relationship with you after discovering your true identity. I just stopped helping you hide it. She threatened to tell everyone that I had sexually assaulted her in high school, that she would report my business to the Better Business Bureau for fraud, and that everyone would know what a terrible brother I was." "Go ahead," I told her. "Tell everyone your brother is a monster because he checks notes, paid for your education, while you tried to conceal his existence. See how that works out for you." Then she went back to begging, crying about how she couldn't afford law school without me, how she'd have to drop out, how she'd lose all of her friends, and how her life would end. "Guess you should have thought about that before you decided I was too embarrassing to acknowledge," I responded. Then I disconnected. After Craig dumped her, Stacy had a complete mental breakdown. According to Sarah, she started showing up at our parents' house at random hours, crying about how her life had ended. She had apparently told all her law school friends that her boyfriend was going to help her with tuition, so when he dumped her, she was completely screwed. The deadline for the tuition payment was fast approaching, and she still hadn't figured out what to do. She tried applying for emergency loans, but guess what? Those take time to process, and she left it way too late. Plus, she'd need a cosigner, and our parents' credit is a mess. I wonder why they keep trying to live beyond their means. Sarah texted me, 911, Stacy just posted on Facebook that she's heading to your shop to make you face what you're doing to her. She appears unstable. I barely had time to warn my guys before she blasted through the door like a tornado in designer clothes, hair all messy, mascara running, full crazy ex-girlfriend energy. Except she was my sister. "How could you do this to me?" she screamed in front of my entire staff and about 3 customers. "I'm your sister. You're meant to look after me." I attempted to encourage her to go outside, or at least lower her voice, but she seemed determined to cause a scene. "You are ruining my life," she screamed, "all because your delicate feelings were harmed. You are so selfish." One of my clients, a sweet old lady who had been with us for years, stood up. "Young lady," she asked, "is this the brother who has been paying for your education?" Stacy turned around like she'd been smacked. "That's none of your business," she snapped. "Well," the elderly lady added, "you just made it everyone's business by storming in here shouting. And based on what I've heard, you excluded your brother from Christmas because you were ashamed of his profession. But you still expect him to pay for your education. That's known as biting the hand that feeds you." In my hometown, that kind of bluntness is rare, and Stacy genuinely didn't know how to handle someone calling her out on her BS who wasn't family. But she recovered fast and shifted into full-blown theatrical sobbing. "You don't understand," she cried. "He is doing this to punish me. He's attempting to harm my future because he's envious of my achievements." I couldn't help laughing. What success, Stacy? The success of convincing your partner to dump you? The success of maybe having to drop out of law school? The success of embarrassing yourself in front of my staff and customers? At the very least, I'm making an effort to establish myself. She shot back, not just playing with pipes all day like some... She had to stop herself, perhaps realizing she was about to degrade plumbing in front of a group of plumbers. Mike, my senior employee and a large fellow who's been with me since I started the business, stood up. "Ma'am," he said in a dead serious tone, "I think you should leave now. For the past 5 years, your brother's pipe playing has provided for my family's needs. It paid for my children's braces and my wife's car. And it appears to have paid for your law school as well, so maybe offer some respect." Stacy looked around, realizing she wasn't getting the reaction she had hoped for. Everyone was staring at her like she was insane, which, to be honest, she was. She tried one last time. "Okay, I'll tell everyone what type of brother you really are. I'll post about it all over social media." "Go ahead," I urged. "Make sure you mention the part where you had me banned from Christmas because you were embarrassed by my employment but still expected me to pay your tuition. I'm sure that'll bring you a lot of sympathy." She stormed off after that, but not before knocking down our sign and clipboard and kicking a display of business cards off the counter. "Very mature, sis." The elderly customer approached me after Stacy left, stroked my arm and said, "You know, my late husband was a plumber. He put all 3 of our children through college. They never once expressed embarrassment about what he did for a living." Then she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You're doing the right thing, honey. Sometimes family members have to learn the hard way that respect is a two-way street." After that scene, I had to sit down with my staff and explain the situation. They were remarkably supportive about it. Mike even remarked that his family's Thanksgiving drama was boring in comparison. So, after the whole explosion at my business, Stacy decided to go nuclear. She started calling every single member of our extended family, telling them her sob story about how her cruel brother was trying to ruin her future out of spite. But here's the thing about family drama. Everyone loves to get involved, but no one wants to actually help. The first one to call was Aunt Karen. Yes, that's her name. And yes, she lives up to it. She got me all wound up about family obligations and how I was being selfish. This is the same aunt who borrowed $5,000 from me 3 years ago for emergency dental work and never paid it back. The conversation went as follows. "How could you do this to your sister?" she demanded. "She's striving to improve herself." "Funny," I responded. "I don't recall you agreeing to help pay for her law school. You still owe me for your teeth, by the way." "There is no," she sputtered. "That's different." "How is it different?" I inquired. "Because from where I stand, this entire family enjoys talking about helping each other until it comes time to actually help. Then suddenly, everyone goes quiet." She hung up on me after that. I guess the reality hurts more than those teeth ever did. Then came Uncle Steve, my father's brother. He's this wannabe big shot who's always boasting about his investment portfolio, but somehow never has money when the restaurant bill arrives. And of course, he tried to lecture me about family investments. "Think of it as an investment in your sister's future," he told me. "When she's a successful lawyer, she'll be able to help you." I laughed so hard at that. Can she help me? She couldn't even bear to have me for Christmas dinner because I'm a plumber. But sure, tell me more about how she'll help me once she's successful. "Well," he said, "maybe you could help her finish school, and she could pay you back." "Great idea," I remarked. "Why don't you lend her the money then? You're always raving about your fantastic investments. Here's an opportunity to invest in my family." He suddenly had to leave. It's amazing how this keeps happening. The best part? No one who called to guilt trip me offered to actually help Stacy themselves. They all had opinions on what I should do with my money, but their wallets firmly closed. I'm done with her, and I'll keep you all posted if anything else occurs. Final update. My sister had me excluded from Christmas because I'm only a plumber, so I took away her law school funds. Hey everyone, I figured I'd post one last update because so many people have been messaging me, asking what happened. I heard from a mutual friend that my sister showed up at her ex-boyfriend's house, uninvited, and tried to talk to Craig's parents. She told them the whole sob story about how she was about to lose everything and needed help, but she conveniently left out the part about hiding me because I'm a plumber. Craig was obviously present and gave them the complete truth. But his father, the judge, looked at her and said, "Young lady, if you're trying to be a lawyer, you should know that attempting to manipulate people by telling half-truths is not a good start to your career." In the end, she had to drop out of law school because she couldn't get private loans without a cosigner, and no one in the family was willing to cosign after all that drama. When Grandma got involved and told them they should be ashamed of themselves, even my parents stopped asking for my help. Stacy is now working as a paralegal at a small law firm. According to Sarah, she claims it's only temporary until she can return to law school, but we all know that's unlikely. As for me, my business is stronger than ever. I've grown to 2 more trucks and employed 4 new workers. I still meet up with Craig and his Uncle Mike for beers on occasion, and it turns out we get along really well when there's no family turmoil involved. My parents tried to reconcile around Thanksgiving, but only because they needed help with their mortgage. I declined and told them maybe they should ask their successful lawyer daughter for help. Oh wait, funny thing is, I actually feel better now that everything's out in the open. No more pretending. No more being the family ATM. No more walking on eggshells about my job. just me, my successful business, and my actual friends who don't give a damn what I do for a living. Thank you for your support, Reddit. Sometimes you need strangers on the internet to confirm you're not insane for standing up for yourself. Edit. Holy crap, this blew up. Thanks for all the accolades, and to everyone who DM'd me about needing a plumber in my region. Sorry, I'm trying to remain anonymous here. Edit 2. To everyone who says I ruined my sister's life, she did it herself. I simply stopped paying it.